So womb healing is trauma healing. Womb healing is shadow work, because we're working with this deep, dark, hidden part of the body where a lot of old childhood stuff is still sitting, is still stored, that has gone unprocessed. Hello and welcome to Sync and Flow, the podcast with me, your host, Josie Thorne. I am a Red Tent Women's Circle facilitator, a womb healer, and feminine empowerment coach. I have been guiding women to embody their true essence through womb activations and feminine embodiment practices. I started Sync and Flow to help educate and connect women back to the wisdom of their sacred womb space and cyclical nature. I want to help all women reawaken to the true power of the feminine that lives deep within them, so that they may cultivate a relationship to self that is rooted in pure trust, divine love, and a deeply intuitive connection to the body. Thank you for being here and taking the time to listen to this podcast episode. I hope you enjoy. Hello and welcome back to Sync and Flow, the podcast with me, your host, Josie Thorne, your favorite womb witch on the internet. Whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple, or watching on YouTube, I just want to say a massive thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting the podcast. It would really mean so much to me if you could please leave a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify, as this will help me reach many, many more women who need to be empowered in their womb. So please, will you do that for me? And if you send me a screenshot of your review to my Instagram via DM, I will make sure to send you a little thank you, in exchange my womb healing guide ebook to say thank you. So thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy today's juicy convo. How you doing? How you feeling? How are we feeling this eclipse? We're in the smack bam middle of this eclipse portal. Things have been crazy. I don't know about you, but I had a lot coming up in my personal life, and a lot especially in relationships, around communication. And yeah, we have another eclipse coming up on the 8th of April. So we are now in between, in the eclipse portal, they say, in between both of the eclipses. So yeah, pay attention to whatever is coming up for you right now, because that is going to be super significant for you to pay attention to and work deeper on. Because whatever the eclipse is bringing up to the surface is going to be something that you're going to want to look deeper at, analyze, reflect on, integrate, and really just see how you can purge and let go and make space for new growth and new healing in your life. The eclipses are not here to bully us. We are not the victims. They are here to help us bring to light what has lived in the unconscious, in the subconscious, so that we can work with it and tangibly grasp these themes and emotions and blockages and limits that we place on ourselves, that have been placed on us from society, that are generated through our trauma. The subconscious limiting beliefs are a byproduct of the trauma that is stuck in our body. And so, speaking of trauma, I am going to be speaking today on how womb healing is trauma healing. And so this is a really deep topic. I think there's a part of me that has tried to be super love and light here on Instagram, and there's a massive realization for me, especially now delving into my astrology, having a midhaven in Scorpio. That's not what I'm here to bring. I'm here to bring the deep, the dark, the ugly, the unconscious, the taboo. And so yeah, really, we are going to be diving into how womb healing is trauma healing, and trauma healing is womb healing, because they are synonymous with each other. When we embark on the journey of healing our womb, it is a very deep journey, often paved with a lot of emotions and grief and intensity and anger. And basically, we are now opening up the channel that is our womb chakra, and we are working with the energy that is in this space, in our pelvis, in our hips, which is where all the emotions are stored. Women store their emotions in their hips. And, I see the womb as being a sponge. I often speak about this. The womb is an emotional, spiritual sponge. And so, whatever we are not consciously processing, releasing, working on, it's going to get stored in the womb space for later. And this is what the body does. When the body sees that the consciousness is not able to process that experience or that emotion or that incident, it stores it in the cellular memory of the body for later. Okay, but there is no such thing as later, because the body is always living in the present. The body doesn't really know time. And so whether an incident happened 10 years ago, yesterday, today, the body reacts to that memory that is stored within as if it were happening right now. And this is the definition of trauma. Trauma is a response. Trauma is a reaction. It is not the incident itself. It is the body's visceral, lucid reaction. It's a nervous system reaction to the event, to the experience that feels overwhelming for the body and the nervous system to handle. And so, like I said, when we start to open the door of our sacral chakra, of our womb chakra, of working into our hips and our pelvis, a lot of things can start to flow out that are very intense, quite ugly, quite dark, quite taboo, a lot of grief, a lot of anger, like a lot of these very dark emotions, a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of these dark emotions that we are often very much shamed for. We're not encouraged to express these emotions for obvious reasons. We live in a society that shuts down our emotional spectrum. And especially within the new age healing world, it's very much about love and light. Let's just focus on love and light. Let's just positivity. Yay, let's go us. But actually, the only way we get there is through the integration of the darkness, is through working with our shadows, is through working with our trauma. So womb healing is trauma healing. Womb healing is shadow work, because we're working with this deep, dark, hidden part of the body where a lot of old childhood stuff is still sitting, is still stored, that has gone unprocessed. In the beginning of the womb healing journey, it can be really, really hard. Oh my God, when I was starting this journey, I had me at the consciousness at which I am now, because it's really dark and it can be really scary to feel the intensity of these emotions surfacing in the beginning. And that's why I always encourage therapy, coaching, support. Working with someone who has been where you have been is really going to help your nervous system feel so much more safer, so that you actually can go deeper into whatever is coming up. Because things come up for a reason. They come up so that the trauma cycle can be closed. This is why we repeat patterns. It's not because we don't learn and we're ignorant and naive. I mean, a part of us is, but it's so that we can repeat it. And I'm talking about on a bodily level. It's not about the repetition of the external, it's about the repetition of the internal sensations and the internal emotions. And so we repeat it so that we can close that cycle and basically resolve that patterning in a new way. And that is the trauma cycle. The trauma cycle will continue to repeat and repeat and repeat, and you will manifest the same situations in different relationships, in different scenarios, in different careers. It doesn't really matter what the part of life is. You will continue to manifest that, because basically we manifest from our subconscious. The subconscious is the body. And so we are manifesting all of, like, everything that is in your body, all the beliefs that you hold in your subconscious. The traumas that you hold live in your subconscious. The childhood memories live in your subconscious. Like, all of these things that have happened to us that make up who we are, that is stored in the subconscious. And so that's why I say we manifest from our subconscious. We manifest based on who we believe we are and the deep rooted beliefs that we have about money, love, sex, relationships, family, the world around us. Excuse me. We manifest from the subconscious. And so if you are still storing emotions and trauma and unprocessed shit in your body, that is what you're going to manifest into your reality. And so the cycle repeats itself. It's really, really important to know this, because how I see it is we have the lower vibrational energies, the emotions. And when I say lower vibrational, I don't mean negative and bad. I more mean around the density of energy. So anger and grief are very dense energies. If you were to kind of look at it in a container, like all the dense lower vibrational energies of anger and greed and grief and sadness, depression, anxiety, worry, all of these emotions, they're very dense, they're very heavy, and so they sit at the bottom level. And then slowly, as we go up the spectrum, we will have the higher vibrational emotions like joy and happiness and bliss. Is like bliss will be at the very top, and then as it goes up the spectrum, right, and pleasure and joy and ecstasy and all these love, love is one of the most higher vibrational emotions. And so all of those high vibrational emotions, they're sitting at the top of the container, they're floating above, but at the bottom is where all the heavy ones are. And so in order for us to get to those higher vibrational emotions such as love and joy and bliss, we first have to go through the heaviness, the depth, the grief, the anger, the sadness. We have to go through it. It's like universal law. We cannot transcend and like skip a step and like, I mean, there are ways that we can, but it's not going to be integrated. Okay, we're going to experience these emotions in very fleeting, on and off, short waves, short bursts, but then we're just going to, because it's not integrated into the body, you see, we're just going to revert back to the lower vibrational emotions. And so sustainable healing is healing that is long lasting, is it's regenerative. The happiness, the joy, the bliss, it's regenerative. It's not just something you experience every now and then. It becomes long lasting. And so if we want that regenerative, sustainable, long lasting happiness, health, love, whatever, we have to do the deep, dark shadow work, unfortunately. And so there comes a time in all of our lives where we will reach a crossroads and we will be confronted with, do we take the path that I've always taken and continue to take and ignore my emotions, invalidate myself, suppress, and just kind of, move on with my life and get on with my day and just push it aside? Or do we take the road less traveled? Do we go down the path that we haven't been before, but it may be a little bit darker, a little bit scarier? There's not so much light there because no one's really walked there. Maybe we're going to have to brush away some twigs and branches and move some rocks and, walk around the side and, find a new path, because that is the unknown path. And that is the path of taking responsibility, personal accountability, dedication, devotion, self-love, self-care, and really taking responsibility for your emotions and for your trauma, because your trauma was not your fault. In no way was it your fault, but it is your responsibility to heal. It is your responsibility to take responsibility for healing your trauma. And if we don't, and we continue to go down the road of suppression and ignorance, we're just going to be repeating those same cycles. We're never going to be able to manifest our dream life, because inside of our body is still stored all this old stuff that's holding us back from living in our dream reality. And so the way that we do trauma healing with womb healing is through the cathartic process of the menstrual cycle. And so through the cycle syncing and cyclical living, we are able to, we given these 4 junctions, these 4 points in time within the 4 phases: the spring, summer, autumn, and winter, the follicular, the ovulation, the luteal, and the menstruation. We are given these 4 moments in our cycle to look at our trauma and to look at our challenges and the things we're struggling with from different perspectives, because in every single phase of our cycle, we're a different woman. We're a different person. We have different ways of thinking, different ways of feeling, different ways of perceiving. And so that's really what it comes down to, is being able to perceive your blockages, your struggles, your challenges from a different viewpoint, from a multi-dimensional viewpoint. And that is going to also help you to heal so much faster when you can get outside of your own head, when you can get out of your own way. That is when you're going to heal so much faster, because the only thing that is stopping you from healing, and that is stopping you from living your best life, that is stopping you from, experiencing wild, ecstatic O's, is yourself. We are the only one that can stand in our way ultimately. And so when we allow ourselves the nuance and the spaciousness of time, because nothing heals instantly, the healing journey is non-linear. It goes up and it goes down, and it goes up a little bit, and then it goes down a little bit, and then it goes backwards a little bit, and then a little bit forwards. It's almost like 3 steps forwards, 5 steps back. It's kind of like that energy, and it can be really frustrating. I know, I've been there. Like, honestly, the amount of times that I have, cycled back onto a trauma or something that I thought I've healed, and I've just like put my hands in my head and I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, can I please just heal this now? Like, oh my God, I'm getting so frustrated. And that is the moment when we just have to sit with it and hold that strength and hold that resilience and hold the fact and the knowing that if I stay dedicated to my healing, if I stay devoted to self-love, if I stay devoted to holding myself throughout this experience, then I know one day it will shift. And maybe that day is in 3 months' time, maybe it's in 6 months' time, maybe it's in a year's time, maybe it's in 5 years' time. Who knows? Only you can know that. Only your soul knows that, right? But we do have the capacity to heal things so much faster. And that is by working with the body. And this is why I'm not really an advocate for talk therapy. I love talk therapy. I was in therapy for 5 years. But, therapy only got me so far on my healing path. And what really accelerated my healing, especially when it comes to, my trauma and childhood trauma that's like really heavy and really dense and is like really like stuck in the body from like years and years and decades of ignorance and suppression, is working with the body, because that's where all our trauma is stored. It's stored in the body. And so in order to release the trauma that's stored in the body, we have to work with the body. Somatic processing, somatic therapy, yoga is an amazing trauma healing tool and practice. Working with our emotions on an embodied level. So embodying them and like allowing ourselves to cry and scream and beat a pillow and get our emotions out of the body. Okay, this is called somatic processing. It's when we make the emotions visible, when we make the feelings visible on the outside. Art therapy, also an amazing way to process emotions, but it's about engaging the body in the process. And it's about kind of, you have to tune off your mind, because it's going to be a non-linear, like, okay, I need to feel now what is right for me. Do I need to cry? Do I need to eat something? Do I need a bath? Do I need some self-love? Do I need a hug? Do I need holding? Do I need someone to listen to me? Do I need to scream and rage and have a tantrum? It's really about giving yourself the permission. Okay, your adult self needs to give your inner child self the permission to go there, to meet your darkness. And this is also so important, of like understanding what is your, who is understanding how do you experience your own masculine energy versus your own feminine energy. Because in those moments, you need to ask your inner divine masculine, okay, can you please hold space? My feminine needs to process. She needs to go there. She needs to cry. She needs to get emotional. She needs to, get worked up and get the energy out. Because if it's staying stuck in the body, that's the contraction, that's the stagnation, that's the tension, that's the shutting down, the closing off, the trauma responses: fight, flight, freeze, fawn, right? Those are the trauma responses that our body goes into when we are in survival, aka we have no fucking idea what to do with what we feel, right? So how we avoid going into the trauma responses is through titration. And you'll often hear therapists, especially trauma healing therapists, speak about titration. What does this mean? It means working with bite-sized chunks. So one little bit at a time, one little bit at a time, at a time, at a time, slowly, gently, nourishing the body. This is nourishing to the nervous system. When we can do things in small little bite-sized chunks, this allows for the nervous system to not get so overwhelmed, and prevents us going into the trauma responses and prevents us from disassociating. Because what can often happen is, if something comes up in the body, it can get so overwhelming. For me, I feel like this fire starts to bubble within me, and it can get so overwhelming that we like don't know what to do with it. And so what do we do? Our consciousness, our awareness just goes from the body and shoots straight up into the head. And this is when we start overthinking and basically disassociating from the experience of the body. And so the importance is to go to our edge. So to go through that process and go and learn what is your edge, where is my edge. Everyone's edge is different, okay? And meeting your edge and then pulling it back a little bit and then moving it forward and then pulling it back a little bit. So yeah, it's really about figuring it out for yourself and meeting your edge. And your edge is going to be like maybe 10 seconds before you disassociate. And so it's just about learning, okay, what pushes me to disassociate? How can I stay present and grounded in the body? And tools for that are tapping and, you know, any somatic work, anything that's going to help you stay in the body, breath work, EFT tapping, yoga, stretching, anything that brings you back to the body is going to help you stay connected to the body's experience. Way that we can incorporate womb healing. When we incorporate womb healing and trauma healing, we can do this really beautifully through the cycle syncing, through the cyclical living, where we have these 4 points in our cycle to address the problem in 4 different ways with 4 different perspectives. You basically become 4 different people in each phase. And so you have 4 yous. You have 4 women within you to consult to help you figure this out. In the follicular phase in spring, we may want to get quite rational about it. So this is when talk therapy would be a really good idea. Talk therapy is an amazing way for us to cognitively process and rationalize and get to understand, okay, XYZ happened to me. No wonder I am ABC. The tools to understand cause and effect, right? So in the follicular phase in spring, that's when we're going to want to bring up this cause and effect reasoning, working with your journal, working with writing and creative brainstorming, and really just, getting it out and getting clear on like, okay, what am I working on? And this is another thing. We need to be clear on what trauma am I focusing on healing now, because when we say trauma, it's such a broad, big word. We've all experienced trauma, whether it's little t trauma, which is you were left in a room crying too long as a toddler, and that left like some imprint of like hurt in your nervous system. Everyone has that. Little t trauma is very common. Everyone has trauma. So don't watch this and say, oh, I don't have trauma. Everyone has trauma. Sorry for you, babes. And then we get big T trauma. And these are big incidences. So death of a family member, car crash, fires, any like significant, intense incidents, anything that was really big in your external world that you went through. We need to get clear on which trauma are we working with, because when we say like, oh, I want to heal my trauma, it's like, babe, which trauma do you want to heal? And it can get really overwhelming and like just feel like, fuck, am I going to be broken forever? Am I going to be like this forever? That's why we need to get clear. So using the follicular phase, the spring, to get clear. Then we go into summer, into ovulation. This is when our energy starts heightening. The energy that we have in our body, our capacity increases, so we can take on more things, we can do more, we can hold more energy physically in our body. It would be really good to actually go into those cathartic processes, allowing yourself to have that engagement with the energy. Use that energy to go deeper into what it is that I'm working on. Going deeper, digging deeper. Maybe you want to have some conversations with some family members. If it's not too triggering, if it's not, maybe you can ask them like, what was I like as a child? Or do you remember this incident? Or can you give me some perspective on this one thing that happened? I'm really interested in finding out more. And just also know that if any triggers are coming up, triggers are our teachers, and they are here to help guide us into deeper awareness of the trauma. Then we get into luteal or autumn, and during this phase, phase, this is when PMS comes up and a lot of self-doubt, a lot of inner critic. And this is when the veil starts to become thin. The line, the bridge between our subconscious and our conscious starts to thin as we approach menstruation. In the luteal phase, this is when we can also be very emotional. And so this is actually the time that you're going to want to work with those emotions. So allowing yourself to cry, allowing yourself to express rage, allowing yourself to have these emotional expressions as long as they're not impacting other people. You know, if you do want someone to hold space for you, like, who is a good space holder? Who do I feel safe with? Who can hold the container or just be there to witness me while I crumble and give up control and just, you know, go into the depth and the darkness and the trauma and the hurt and the pain? Because if we don't allow ourselves to feel those things, they're going to stay stuck in our body forever. Emotions don't go away. They really don't go away just because we're not thinking about them, just because we're not being confronted with them on a daily basis. They're still stuck in your body, and your body wants to desperately release them through the beautiful tantric principles that I work with all my clients, through movement, through sound, through breath. So these are the three tools that we use to work with our emotions in a really tangible way. This is often why when we do yoga, sometimes we hold certain positions like bridge pose. I always used to cry at the end of class in bridge pose because of how much pain and sadness was in that part of my body. At the end of class, you're just like, oh, I can just release now. How can you allow yourself more space to release? Maybe you need to do something to increase the energy first. That's often what happens, is we need to kind of have this, it's like a car battery that hasn't been started in a while. So we need something that's going to catalyze the emotion to come to the surface. And that's why working with our pain and with our emotions in the moment they come up is actually the best way to do it. Because if we push it away for later and say, oh, I'll just deal with that later, you're not going to feel like it later. You know, now is the time. This is when it's coming up. So deal with it as it comes up. Otherwise, you're just going to delay the inevitable, and then in 2 months' time, you're going to have a nervous breakdown, and all of it is just going to fucking explode because you've been suppressing for so long. So in the luteal autumn phase, this is when we can get really, really close with our emotions, really allow ourselves to go into them, like really feeling that heaviness, allowing yourself to sit with that heaviness. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to change it. Don't try to do anything other than just feel and breathe and be. And then we get into the menstrual phase, and there's no veil. There's no, our consciousness and our subconscious are like so intertwined and interlinked and rely on each other so much in this time. And so the menstrual phase is really when we can go into that hole, into that dark womb cave. It's you and you. It's your soul and your mind. It's your trauma and healed self. It's your inner child and your adult self. And they can come together and meet each other in this moment and look each other in the eye and like really like looking at your inner child and saying to him or her, babe, I see you. Like, I know how much pain you went through. I know how devastating it was for you to grow up in that environment. I know how devastating it was for you to get bullied at school. I know how devastating it was for you to never feel understood. This is when we get to really, really hold space for that. I don't want to say damaged, but that damaged part of us. Because you're not broken and you don't need to be fixed. But yes, there is a part of you that wants to be seen, that wants to be felt. And those are those deep, dark parts of us that we often struggle to feel, that we often struggle to acknowledge, that we often struggle to meet because we don't have the tools in our daily lives to access that part of ourselves. The more you go on your healing journey, the less confronting shadow work becomes, the easier it becomes. You know, you start being able to transmute shadows and trauma and blocks and limiting beliefs like so much faster because you kind of know the process. process, but in the beginning it can be really sticky and really uncomfortable and really like, why the fuck am I doing this? Like, can it just stop? Like, God, please, why? Someone help me, you know? It can be really scary. And I know I was in that place for a while, you know. It took a while for me to kind of be like, oh my God, I think all of the healing work that I've done over the last 5 years is finally like, I finally feel okay. Like, I finally, yeah. So, wherever you are on your journey, know that you don't have to do it alone. You are 100% deserving of love and support and care in a professional capacity. You know, your parents are not your therapist, your siblings are not your therapist, your friends are not your therapist. Please see the value in investing in professionals, people that are trained to help you alchemize and work through this deep, dark shit. Because yeah, otherwise you might just end up re-traumatizing yourself by not doing it in a professional capacity. And that's just not going to be productive at all. So yeah, we're going to come to an end, come to a close. Thank you so much for those of you that were here live with me. If you resonate with anything that I've been saying, please go check out the rest of my podcast, Sink and Flow the podcast, on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. I am also launching my signature program very, very soon. This is so exciting. It's called, I'm still kind of deciding on the name, but I actually think I want to stick with this name. It's called Healing Flow. And so it's all about working with the menstrual cycle, working with the body, healing our relationship to our feminine energy, healing our relationship to our sensuality, and using the menstrual cycle, like I've explained in this podcast, to delve deeper and heal our trauma. It's really in this 5-week program, I'm going to give you all of the tools that you could ever need to heal your womb and to heal all that stuck anger, emotions, grief, pain, and alchemize it into pleasure, into joy, into bliss. And that's the most exciting part. You know, we work with it and we work and we work and we knead the bread and we make it and we bake it and we mix the ingredients, and then we come out the other side and we've got a beautiful cake that we baked. And we eat the cake and we get pleasure and we get joy and we get consistent bliss and we feel confident and we feel empowered and we feel, you know, we can speak our truth and we can embody our full sexual expression in sexual experiences, because there's nothing holding us back, because we've cleared it, we've worked with it, we've released it from the body. And so you can now start showing up as your best self, and you can start manifesting from that space of love, clarity, confidence, pleasure, self-validation. And that's when your whole reality starts to shift, when the internal starts to match the external. Okay, so please feel free to send me a DM. I'm always available for questions, chats, personal comments. And yeah, if you would like to be added to the pre-launch special list for Healing Flow, please send me a DM. I will send you the link. Only the people on this list will get access to this special pre-launch price. Yeah, otherwise for everyone else, early bird is available now for €333, and on the 15th of April it will go up to 555. Okay, so yeah, sending all my love and we will chat soon. Mwah. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode and engage with all the wisdom that was shared. If you enjoyed this podcast, please remember to leave a review on your podcast platform of choice, as this really helps this wisdom reach new people. If you have any questions or queries, please feel free to reach out to me via Instagram DM or send me an email. You can follow me on my personal account on Instagram at Josie, Josie _Thorne, THORNE, or you can follow Sync and Flow, my business accounts, at Sync, that's spelled SYNC _in_flow. Please feel free to reach out with any questions or queries you may have. Otherwise, get in contact to book a free discovery call to start your self-healing spiritual journey today. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now, loves.